A year ago, if I said you needed to prepare for an Arceus Duraludon matchup, people would have looked at me like I was insane. But now, you kinda have to. Hey, Nick from 9 Card TCG, and today we're gonna be looking at gameplay footage that I recorded at my locals this past week. I feel like I haven't been to locals in a couple of weeks, but I was able to get back, play some Pokemon, have a lot of fun, and thank you to everybody who went to locals, let me record, all that kind of stuff. I wouldn't be able to do this without you. Now, I'm going to be playing, or I'm going to be showing some gameplay footage from this past week where I played Lugia Urshifu against Arceus Duraludon Umbreon, because it's a deck that's pretty popular, and if you don't have an answer for it, you kind of just lose. And my answer to it is a 2-2 line of Urshifu V and VMAX, because I think you just need it. And also, I like the Urshifu against Arctina. I like the Urshifu against Goodra. Yeah, sure, it doesn't help in the Mew or the Gardevoir matchup, but, you know, you got the Tyranitar and you got the Single Strike Yveltal for those matchups. So we have things that we can do. We have ways of dealing with pretty much every matchup. It's just a matter of, can you set up? And that's really the question in when you're playing the Lugia deck is, can you set up? Can you get a Lugia turn 1? And do you have ways to get those Archeops into the discard turn 1 or turn 2, depending on if you go first or second? So you really kind of have to make that happen. And I'm going to show you 2 pieces of gameplay footage. I'm not going to spoil too much, but I'm going to show you 2 pieces of gameplay footage, and you let me know what you think. So why don't we get right to it? Alright, fist bump means the gameplay is underway. My opponent starts with the Umbreon, but they have the Nest Ball, so they can go ahead and get the Arceus V that just happen to be sitting at the bottom of the deck, ready to be found. They attach a Dark Energy to the Arceus. While they shuffle, I'm going to draw for turn, and I really don't have much going on. We get the Capturing Aroma, so we're going to flip a coin. If heads, get an evolution Pokemon. If tails, like I get right here, I can go ahead and get a basic Pokemon. And of course, we're going to go ahead and get the Lugia V. And we really don't have a ton else going on, which is a little bit scary. I can attach the Gift Energy to the Lugia V, and then I just pass to my opponent. My opponent draws for turn, and this is where things get a little challenging for me. They actually have a way to win the game. They're going to go ahead and play the Ultra Ball, get rid of the Boss's Orders and a Lost City, which is going to net them the Arceus V-Star. Now that they have the Arceus, they can go ahead and play Chorus's Experiment. And what they need to find is a few different things. They find a double Turbo Energy, which now allows them to attack. They also find the Umbreon VMAX, which they don't necessarily need, but they're going to be able to attach the double Turbo Energy. So now the Arceus is hitting for 180, what the Choice Ball is hitting for 210. Now they go ahead and Starbirth. They're going to get the Holucha that deals damage to bench and the Escape Rope. So they play the Holucha, put 10 damage on Escape Rope, and they're able to knock out with Trinity Nova, which is essentially the game at that point. Game number 2, fist bump, and we get to go first this time. We start with the Lugia V, which is always a good thing. We don't have to start the Lumineon, and I wanted to show that because it was such a cool line of play that my opponent was able to take. Now, you can see my hand is just nothing but energies. We attached the V-Guard energy just as a way to protect a little bit, but that's it. My opponent gets to draw for turn. They start the Umbreon, which is for us great. Attaching the Single Strike Energy to the active Umbreon means they can at least do a little bit of poke damage. They're going to go ahead and use the Lumineon and use the Luminescent ability to go ahead and find a supporter of their choosing, put it into their hand. Adventurous Discovery is their choice, which they'll immediately play. Adventurous Discovery lets you get 3 Pokemon V and put them into your hand. They're going to go the Duraludon V and the Arceus V, and they might go with maybe another Arceus V just to keep me from like boss KOing their Arceus V. This because if that happens, they basically lose immediately. Although they might try to go with the V-Star or V-Max just to be ready for the next turn. But it looks like it's going to be a second Arceus V. They go ahead and play the Nest Ball to just get another Pokemon from their deck onto the bench. They're going to get the Umbreon. This does a couple of things. One, it means that they can still use the Dark Signal or Darkness Signal, whatever, from the Umbreon V when they evolve into the VMAX. And my opponent's going to go ahead and end their turn by using Mean Look for 20 damage. I'll draw for turn. And really, I have nothing going on, and all those energies in the hand, getting rid of them is a little scary, but we do attach a Gift Energy, and I'm going to have no choice but to research away a few energies and earn a vitality, but we do have an Archeops in there that we can get rid of, which is pretty nice. And then we get arguably one of the best hands we could ask for with this research, a couple of capturing aromas and a few ultra balls, which means now what we have to do is flip heads on this. We can discard, which we do. We get an Archeops, we can discard it with ultra ball to get the V-Star, use the V-Star ability to get those Archeops into the from the discard pile into the bench, and then we have capturing aroma and ultra balls to go ahead and start filling out our bench, because we do really need to get like an Urshifu V going so that we can hit into that Duraludon. Now, luckily, my opponent has a lot of targets on field. We're going to get 2 prizes off of this Umbreon. There's a Luminion on the board that they might try to Volo or get rid of. There's another Umbreon V. Yeah, probably that kind of stuff's going to evolve. We just really don't want to deal with the Duraludon VMAX without an Urshifu. I do play another Capturing Aroma. It's a Tails. Fantastic news. We can go ahead and get the Urshifu immediately, and that's exactly what we do. Primal Turbo allows us to get 2 Archeops from the discard onto the bench, and we're going to use Primal Turbo right away. Well, because we had to discard a few energies, I got to be really careful about how much I accelerate. So I'm not accelerating to anything that I'm not going to attack with right away. Yes, you can make the argument, well, it thins the deck, and maybe you'll find like the urn you might need later. But really, I don't want to do that too much because there's always a chance that I don't find the urn. And my hand right now is just a lot of like Pokemon search, and I don't want to use that to find a Luminion to then get a research to dump whatever else is in my hand. Like, I'd rather just save it and use it when I need it than just accelerate it because I can. So I accelerate the 1 double turbo energy. I don't need that much. I only need to do 200 damage to attack and knock out this Umbreon. We get the Radiant Serena. We can use the ability to heal the 20 damage off of that Lugia. And it makes it just a little bit harder for my opponent to KO with the Duraludon VMAX. So we just Tempest Dive, KO, take 2 prizes. My opponent sends up the Arceus V and they draw for turn. You can see that they have a switch in hand. They have some stuff, right? They have an Ultra Ball. They go and evolve the 2 bench Pokemon, the V-Star and the V-Max. They have a boss in hand, it looks like. So if they wanted to deal with the Urshifu, they can't even, because they don't have a way to boss up and get enough energies onto their Pokemon to attack at the same time. So they're in a little bit of a tough situation. They're just going to go ahead. They're going to play the Ultra Ball. They are going to boss up that Serena and kind of hope that I've discarded enough energies to leave that a little bit stuck. And also, the Lugia now only does 200 damage, and it's not enough to get rid of, or to knock out that Arceus in 1 hit. So the boss play was not bad, or using Umbreon's Darkness Signal to bring up the Radiant Serena, not really a bad play. My opponent uses Starburst to get 2 cards. One of them is the Double Turbo Energy, you see them attached, and the other is the Chorus. So just look at the top 5 cards. They're going to go ahead, choose 3 of them, and 2 go into the loss zone. Nothing really spectacular off of that Chorus, if we're being honest. A Judge is not bad for like the next turn to kind of throw me off if they're going to keep going these boss routes, but really not a ton. So they get rid of the Hawlucha and the Double Turbo Energy, and from there it's just a Trinity Charge. I got the draw for turn, and now I have to get this Serena out of the active. It's a little annoying, and I am staring down a mostly powered up Duraludon VMAX. That Arceus is just 1 energy away from being fully powered up. So I kind of have to start doing some stuff, but I don't have to do a ton. Knocking out this active Arceus V with beatdown on the Urshifu VMAX is my best play. But the challenge here is getting the Serena out of the active while also powering up the Urshifu. So I'm going to go ahead and use 1 Primal Turbo. And my goal here is to get an energy out of the deck to guarantee the Serena retreat. And I feel like I have enough energies in my deck that if I go ahead and play any draw supporters, I'll be able to find 1 energy. I just need to attach 1 energy from hand to the Urshifu V, so I can use the Archeops, the second Archeops and Primal Turbo 2 more onto the Urshifu V, because I can't use a Double Turbo Energy, right? Double Turbo Energy doesn't do enough damage to knock out the Arceus V-Star with the beatdown attack. It only does 100. So even if I put a double turbo and a single strike energy, that's still not enough. That's only going to do 200 damage. So I use the Ultra Ball to get the Urshifu VMAX. Again, I want to thin the deck out a little bit just to make things a little bit easier for myself. Now I play the Judge, and another reason why using Ultra Ball there is great is because Ultra Ball and the cards I discarded would have gotten shuffled back into the deck as well. So not only did I not put those back into the deck, but I pulled another card out. I just saved myself like 4 cards. Or I, made 4 cards less into the deck and a little bit higher of a chance of pulling what I need out of this Judge. So we get our 4 cards. I wish I was smart enough to put them on camera so you can see what I drew into. But we go ahead and use the second Primal Turbo. Spoilers, I found what I needed. So now I can just go ahead and get really any 2 energies that's not a double turbo energy and attach it to my Urshifu V. So we get a gift energy, and I think that's a single strike energy, at least that's what it looks like. I can go ahead and manually attach another single strike energy from hand. Now Beatdown's going to do a lot of damage. Right now it's looking at 140, times 2 is 280. While I'm shuffling, I would like to just say my opponent does have a win, like they have a way, not necessarily a win condition, but they have a way to knock out that Urshifu in a single hit. A lot of these decks, or some of them, are running Karen's Conviction, and that is your single strike Pokemon do 20 more damage for each prize card your opponent has taken. So after I knock out this Arceus, my opponent's going to have I'm going to have 4 prizes taken. That Duraludon's going to do 300 damage. Add a Choice Belt on there. Now you're doing 330, and it's just enough to KO that Urshifu VMAX. So they could do it, but they're still pretty far behind, and I can just beat down KO. The Duraludon VMAX gets the call. It's in the active. It's pretty easy for them to just attack, but it's not going to do a ton here. They go ahead and they play the Call versus Experiment. They find the Fighting Energy and the Choice Belt, so they're going to be able to do quite a bit of damage. However, they didn't have those cards early enough in order to make use of Duraludon and something like the Karen's Conviction, because even here it would do 250 with the Choice Belt. Gmax Pulverization does base 220. They can move 2 more damage counters with the Radiant Alakazam that they just benched, but that still only brings you to 270. Not enough. So they have a couple of options. The options are to just hit into it and hope I don't have another single strike energy, but they're going to go ahead. They're going to try to attach the Fighting Energy and the Choice Belt, play the Escape Rope. I'm going to send up the Serena. They're going to send up the Alakazam, and that's their turn. I draw for turn. Really, all I have to do is 2 things. 1, I have to retreat this Radiant Serena, and 2, I have to boss up literally any Pokemon. So we're going to Primal Turbo to make sure that I have a Lumineon and a boss in the deck because I have an Ultra Ball in hand. So we go ahead and use the Primal Turbo as our search. We get that energy onto the Urshifu. So now we can Gmax 1 blow anything in the game. We now attach from hand. We can retreat into the Urshifu, and now it's just a matter of playing down the Ultra Ball. We're going to get rid of any 2 cards. It doesn't really matter. There's the Thornton. There's the Capturing Aroma. We could have maybe used the Capturing Aroma, but we are going to go ahead, get the Lumineon, use Luminesign, get Boss's Orders, bring out the Duraludon VMAX, and Gmax 1 blow for 3 prizes, more than we need. Well played. So why on earth did my opponent show the Lost City at the end there? And the answer is because if they were able to knock out my Urshifu V or VMAX, it would go into the Lost Zone instead of the discard pile. And a lot of Lugia decks are now running things like Thornton to have a 2-2 line of Urshifu without having to play, or at least a 2-1 line of Urshifu, right? They don't have to have the second Urshifu V. Thornton can act like a second Urshifu V. However, they play Lost City, and now you can't Thornton. So just have the second Urshifu V. I mean, it helps. It does. Yeah, can it make it a little bit clunky? Sure. But if you run the Tyranitar, the Single Strike Yveltal, and the Urshifu, you got your Single Strike energies, you got your Impact energies, maybe you consider running Tower of Darkness. That's a lot of Single Strike support in the deck that I think can make a little bit of a difference, but that's just my opinion. What do you think? What did you think of the battles? Do you think that my opponent could have done something differently? They thought maybe instead of the Culver's, they should have judged. probably a good option because then I don't have game in hand. I would have to either hope I drew into a boss, a Lumineon, an Ultra Ball. Maybe I get Tails on a Captured Roam and I can get the a basic Pokemon, which would be that Lumineon. It still had a fair number of outs. Serena is still a viable option for just bossing up any Pokemon V, which my opponent plays. Only Pokemon V, really. So we had quite a few win conditions, and even still, even if they did buy the extra turn needed to bring up the Duraludon and KO it, I don't have to use the Urshifu, right? If they did stall a turn, right, and they bring up the Serena, and I could just retreat and attack into with the Lugia, knock out that Alakazam. Now they have to deal with the Lugia before they can go ahead and use or knock out the Urshifu, right? They play Escape Rope, they're not able to, I could just send up like an Archeops. If they play Boss, well, they're not playing Karens and they're not knocking out the Urshifu then. So either way, no matter how you slice it, I was going to win that game just based on the setup, at least how that particular game went. But I didn't lose the first two, right? We actually played 3 games. I showed you game 1 and game 3. Game 2 was just kind of a hard brick. But yeah, those are the games. Let me know what you think. Paldea Evolved is on the horizon, so is there a deck that you're looking forward to in Paldea Evolved? It's going to be pretty exciting, I think, at least anyway. But that's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.